So the fourth candle tells us we're very much on the edge of Christmas. I look forward on Christmas Day to lighting that King, the one in the centre. It'll soon be upon us and we want to enjoy it to the full. But just before we do, before we rush on to Christmas, we remind ourselves of the wonderful encounter of Mary and Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth becomes the first human witness to the good news the angel had brought to Mary. I think it's wonderful of the role of women. We have, at the very beginning, it's women that receive the news of the birth of Christ, and it's women that will receive the resurrection news too. Both were women open to be used by God. One bears the messenger, the forerunner, John the Baptist, and one the message itself, which is a very powerful truth to the world. Let me read to you the words from Luke's Gospel, chapter 1. We often know it as the Magnificat, Mary's song. And Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour. For he's been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He's scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He's brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He's helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, just as he promised to our ancestors." These, in my own estimation, happen to be amongst the most beautiful words ever spoken and then written. The Song of Mary doesn't contain any reference in itself to the birth of Christ, but it makes a huge connection between his coming into the world and its impact upon the world. Like an aria in an opera, a duet in a musical, the Magnificat stops the action. It invites us to celebrate the greatness of God. I don't think there's anywhere that gets really as high as the feelings that we get when we hear Mary in these words. And yet it calls us to see the ability of God equally at the same time to topple the powerful and make good the poor. You know, we had a guest once who wanted to come on the show, and I talked to him. He said, "I'd like to talk about," he was a very wealthy person. He wanted to talk about those things that related to wealth. And I felt I wanted to say, and I didn't put it in these words, you know, it's the poor that know most about wealth. It's those who have little that know about the greatness of God. Those who have perhaps been robbed of all those things that might give life its powerful meaning for them. And for me, the way that Mary talks about this bringing down of people from their place of power to simplicity is a wonderful place. It must have been somebody able to respond in that way, her obedience to God. I think it was Desmond Tutu in South Africa was asked about revolutionary documents. And he said the most revolutionary document that he knew of was the Magnificat. You know, that was the dangerous document because it challenges to think, I think, about those things that really God has come to bring. It has its links with the Beatitudes of Jesus at the beginning of Matthew chapter 5, when it talks about the meek and those who grieve and those who mourn and saying this is the place of blessedness. And I think that this Christmas, we should really hold ourselves back. I said before on this program, I see my job often as a Christian minister in the season of Advent as holding Christmas back long enough so that we can really celebrate in all its fullness what it has to say to us. And I believe the story of Mary in itself has so much that we might gain as importance. And then you follow her ministry really, don't you? There at the first of those miracles, do what he tells you. Remember the turning of water into wine, that pondering of things in her heart. And then really at the end of the Gospels where we have this wonderful moment where Jesus actually reaches out to her from the cross and gives her somebody to care for her and gives to the disciple known as the beloved disciple, John, the one that he cared a great deal about, saying, here's your mother, here's somebody to care for you. Look, what a relationship between Jesus Christ, the Saviour, and his mother, one that we perhaps haven't always treasured. Well, what does Mary have to say to us today? Well, I think it tells us that God had a great plan, that great plan required on the part of people obedience to the will that is beyond us. And she demonstrated how that will can be fulfilled. And perhaps the message of Mary has never been needed more in the world. That message is, of course, the message of Jesus, the message that reaches out to people in their need, that puts us all on our guard from getting too slick about the world and calls us to a place of worship. I hope this Christmas you're going to find time to worship in your local church, whatever that church is. We're not bothered about the team that you belong to. I've been talking to somebody today that belongs to very clearly one of those teams. But it doesn't matter what team you belong to. What matters is that Christ is at the heart of your Christmas. And my prayer is that you'll discover wherever you are the real meaning of the season that lies ahead of us and celebrate the coming of Jesus into the world in all its fullness. The small, weak, helpless baby thing in all its vulnerability poured into the hands and lives of a young woman who had so much to say to us. May God make that part of our Christmas.